Greeting interwebs, it's Jackie K, and welcome for another edition of Mad Rat Dead. The adventures of, oh wait, we're already at the boss fight. I have no more time for tangents. Also, I know the format of commentary for this particular first through is drastically different from how I usually do a first through. Maybe the point of making you wonder, Jackie K, are you sure this is really your quote-unquote first through? Well, if you even had a moment of doubt, then the upcoming level will certainly be an assurance to that. Cause I guess the whole quote-unquote boss fight wasn't so bad, but there's definitely a section of it that was so terrible that I actually replayed the boss fight. Cause I felt bad witnessing or like having y'all like have to watch me die in the same section like 5 to 20 times in a row. But as I was reviewing all my footage for this episode, I realized, at least according to the game, this run isn't that much better, if not the same, as the second attempt, so screw it. It's the first for a reason, we're gonna just roll with it. He's called Mad Rat for a reason, so let's get at it. And I'm gonna stop myself there, because I already attempted to just keep the rhyme going 2 times, and it turned into a cluster fire all the time. Kinda like this battle for me. I don't know why, I feel like the first time going through this, before deciding to make this a playthrough, this boss fight in particular I thought went a lot smoother, but eventually we get to the point where I like died to that particular paw like 5 times, and that's not even the part where I thought was so bad that I just had to cut it out for your all sanities. And I guess I also felt some guilt having this be the level that I was struggling with, because from the little bit I've seen from people who've enjoyed Mad Rat Dead talk about this game, when they talk about how bad the boss fights are, they pointed this one as an example of how a boss fight should be to actually fit the way the game works. And I don't know, maybe I'm just used to the arena like area, but I do see their point of like what makes this particular type of boss fight good, because this game's all about movement, and unlike some of the arena boss fights, you're actually encouraged to make use out of said movement. It's just too bad that I suck at it. And I continue to get splat by the cat. And that's all that. I never promised that I would stop the rhyming. I said that I had to cut out some really bad rhymes. Ooh. Slight warning, there's a chance that this whole commentary for this episode is me reacting to my horrible gameplay of this boss fight, because I did have a nice tangent relating to game design and history with it in the last one, and what I said in there still holds true, that there are some moments that it felt like I was rushing it, despite the fact I went so long over the video length to talk about it. But it's been a couple weeks since I recorded a commentary for that, so it's not really fresh on my mind. And I'm a little worried of how much I'll have to repeat myself to remember exactly what parts of that commentary I wanted to elaborate on. So, plus I think I want to make sure I pay plenty attention to just how this boss fight plays out, because I think it is such an important part to this game's gameplay. I guess to the narrative standpoint it has some impact too, because this is the first time that Mad Rat's really not running away and actually fighting back. Speaking of which, no worries, I did cut out a section earlier on, but it was literally just me dying to the same area 5 to 20 times. The 20 might be a little exaggerated, which is why I went with the 5. But never you fear, for those of you who are watching this first through, to see just how bad someone can be at this game, because I have not made any other cuts for the rest of this video, so any fantastic failures that I have are here in the footage for your pleasure and viewing. Again, this boss fight does feel impactful from both a gameplay and a narrative standpoint. Gameplay-wise, this is the only boss fight like this. Unfortunately, for better and worse, any boss fight after this is all in the format that we've seen of like the Mad Rat fight and Mad Heart, where it's just an enclosed area that we're moving back and forth. And this is the only time in the game where a boss fight kind of plays more like an extension of a level, rather than a one-on-one combat with your enemy sort of ordeal. Kind of like in Mario 3D World, how the final boss in that works. And I'm pretty sure there's other times Mario platformers have taken that route as well. I guess arguably Mario Wii follows that tangent. And why am I getting a sense of deja vu? I probably have brought up Mario, those particular type of boss fights in Mario a couple times. And it's kind of weird because, like, I don't consider myself a Mario fan. But because it's so iconic, it makes such an easy example when trying to describe that type of gameplay to people, especially for a boss fight. Though I can't really think of anything besides this game that I would have wanted to bring up that example anytime recently. So did I really bring that up in a previous Mad Rat Dead episode? Possibly? Maybe I was foreshadowing to this when talking about Mad Rat Heart or something? Oh well, I'm only making the deja vu worse by reminiscing over it. But yeah, I would have loved to see the game explore this type of environment for a quote-unquote boss fight. So it is a little bit of a shame that this is the only time the game does it. Though I do have to re-emphasize that I think that the other format for the boss fights in this game get overhated, which it's a little hard to say. Maybe I'm not in the minority and I only think about it because I've only seen like 1 or 2 videos that even feature this game at all. Or should I say video series. And even in that sense, I can only think of 1 video series in particular. I picked up this game relatively quickly after first finding out about it. Cause I said it before, but I can't say it enough. I have to say it at least once for every time I complain about a homing attack. If only on a conceptual level, this game is amazing. I cannot think of too many rhythm games that actually push out the platforming aspects and elaborate on them as much as this one does. And it gets all my respect for that and that alone. But yeah, arena-based boss fights in this game aren't so bad, though I definitely see why the preference could be this particular format. After all, you play a platformer to do platforming. So a boss fight that focuses more on platforming than on direct combat would be a good game or a good level for a platformer fan. I mean, that's at least what I'm thinking of it conceptually. And this is also part of the downside of making this a first through and kind of like trying to play it as soon as I found out about it and not really like doing any research, not really like observing the community or whatever to really get a gauge on how the fans of this game really think about the game. I think it overall is worth it because it allows me to format my own opinions without worrying about it being if my opinions are actually my opinions, or if they're just influenced by like what I think other people think about the game. And there's that boss fight. Cat splat in the face, and that's all there is to it. A little shorter than I thought it was. For some reason I thought I played so bad that it would take up the entire episode, but I guess we did fit one more into it. I guess it is worth saying I do still have the footage of that second attempt. And if I feel that this commentary or this episode is a little too short, even with an extra level, I think I'll just squeeze it in at the end without commentary, and you can all judge for yourself if I did better the first time or the second time. I just noticed, the cat is drowning. Our combat kind of left it in the more deeper end of the problem. And that was kind of shallow of a pun. When the cat is freaking drowning, it's only being true to his instincts. But then again, all Rat wanted to do was survive, so it sucks, but it's fate, right? Hey, Heart. What is going on? What a random time to ask about cats. Especially for a rat. No way. Yeah, he just went back in time. What's he planning on doing? Just going back in time expecting the cat to remember that he beat him up, so fighting him is futile and just gonna end up in a bad fate? Well, I mean, the cat hasn't attacked yet. Wait, I can't believe this plan is actually working. Well, now's not really a time to try to understand the logic of that entire scene. That water is still going up, and we'll drown if we stick around. I guess it's just a matter if we're gonna race against the water, fighting a cat again, or fighting alongside a cat. And it's kind of looking like we're gonna go for the latter. So I think I'm gonna lead off with what makes this stage special. That way, we have all the time in the world for tangents. My favorite part of these commentaries. As you may see, the cat is following us along and not attacking us. The cat will actually help us for particular platforming sections. Speaking of, there I go, completely ignoring the cat, literally offering a paw to us. I guess it could be a little hard to distinguish. But looking in post, I guess the best advice I could give, where the cat's eyes are, that's where the platform you can stand on ends. Wait. That's a terrible time for a frame drop. Because now I have no idea why oh, wait. I see now. I wall jumped when I thought I cleared the platform altogether, so I literally just jumped right back into the drink after crossing the platform. Why do I feel that's gonna be a common trend with this level, of just taking the cat's kindness and making him go, wait, I died to this airhead? So I guess that's all I got to explain about the level itself. So let's see if I can squeeze in one of these juicy tangents into the mix. I guess before I try to expand on some of the discussion points I had, I could give a little more history with my interest in game design, because for something that I kind of technically dropped out of for a major standpoint, I have quite a bit of history with it. Like, I could trace back game design interests as early as like elementary school. I don't know if I still have the papers, but I remember holding on to papers for way longer than I should have from like maybe kindergarten or one of the first 3 grades that mentioned like my dream job growing up would be being a game maker. And that's kind of just interesting to have such ambitious ideas at such a young age. I guess when we're all that young, we don't really have any idea what the work is gonna be like. But it's kind of like interesting that like it wasn't a matter of just wanting to make video games because I like playing video games. Well, maybe back then, being that young, that was a little factor of it. But even then, there was parts and factors of me that was quote-unquote making games, even if I didn't have the tools to actually make games. Like a lot of older sketchbooks of mine, even back before I actually had sketchbooks and they were just line paper, would be just making like doodles. And it's a little hard to describe because I want to say like I was making pen and paper video games, but that was only be half accurate. I was mostly just like using the papers to keep track of the math that was going on with the games in my head. It's a little hard to explain without showing an example. Like there'd be a lot of times I was just imagining RPGs that I would make up in my head, and like using the paper to like track how much HP the characters had and when they would level up, or like the experience they needed to level up, and little things like that, where it was like 99% in my head, but the pen and paper were involved, even like back then. Like it might have taken by middle school before I got that quote-unquote in-depth in advance. I don't know, like, I'm getting old. Childhood feels like it was so long ago. It's kind of getting sad if I'm like getting to a point where I can barely tell apart what parts of my childhood were in elementary school and which parts were in middle school. But that's life, I suppose. Regardless on when I picked it up, it was pretty early on, and the more I learned about how to actually make games, the more interest that I had in them. And really only took the frickin' programming part of game design to really start turning me away from making games. The industry didn't help either, but I don't have time to elaborate on that. I think the point I was getting at is that it's kind of interesting that I had the interest from such a young age, and it wasn't just a factor of wanting to make video games because I like playing video games. I kind of actually had interest in creation. Like, I wanted to actually implement own stories and worlds, and the more I learned about the concepts, like the design parts, not necessarily the development parts, the more interest I actually gained in the field. And you know, it's kind of interesting to reflect back on, because I was always considered the more technical, mathematical kid growing up, one thing with logic, and you wouldn't really think to be the type of person to daydream in the classroom and things like that, because I did really well in school. I was really I don't know what the word is. I was considered very smart because I did very well in my classes, paid attention, it's easy for me to focus, which makes it feel really weird of where the heck my life went, because I feel a lot more like an airhead now than I do when I was a kid. Maybe these things were just so easy back then that it was easy to focus in on. Who knows? It was too long ago. But that came to mind because I got thinking, maybe that part of me that daydreamed and imagined that's a lot more apparent now than when I was a kid. Maybe that part of me was always around, but just never really had a chance to shine in my childhood. Because I wasn't really an athletic person. So back then, like, all you really cared about was, are you smart or are you athletic? And I happened to be good at the smarts, or what at least society considered smart at the time. So I got known as the smart kid, the bookworm, which is kind of weird because I did have a little social life. Like, no one hated me, no one went out of their way to bully me, and I had a lot of people that considered me a friend. But wow, that's kind of a tangent I really don't got in time to go into for now. And unlike the other tangents, I can't promise I'll go back and elaborate it. Especially since this cutscene's not too long. It's mostly part going, thanks for saving the cat, and Mad Rat going, don't thank me, I just did what I wanted to do. He's doing morally good things just because he wants to, and not out of any sort of pressure otherwise. What good character development. Now, I know it's a little bit short, and in hindsight I probably could have gotten away with one more level in the mix, but I wasn't sure if it would have been too long in the editing process before the post-commentary, so I'm just gonna leave it off as is. But since it is a little short, and I have the extra footage anyways, I figured I'd just include the second take of the cat fight right here, so you can see just what I mean about my second attempt feeling so much better and more fluid than the first attempt, but the game ranking me basically the same way. And you can be the judge for yourself of if I actually did better the first time or the second time. Though when I say second time, I more so mean third or fourth attempt. I forgot that I did like 3 attempts after the actual recording, just because I got really critical of actually trying to do a good run of this level. So that's it for commentary for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to my playthrough of Mad Rat Dead. And next time, we're going to continue to make our way back to the lab to confront the human. Until then, see you all later.